Okay, imagine a society where the number of marriages hasn't just dipped a little bit. We're talking plummeted to levels we literally haven't seen since the end of World War II. It's wild. We are looking at a fascinating, massive cultural shift happening right now in Japan, and it is a trend that is fundamentally reshaping an entire nation from the ground up. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is essentially a silent but incredibly powerful marriage boycott. Why are Japanese women in unprecedented numbers simply refusing to get married? It's a quiet rebellion for sure, but its echoes are deafening. To really understand it, we need to look past the surface and dig into the daily realities of modern life. So let's dive into this.
So why say no to marriage? Well, this isn't just a temporary dip caused by a bad economy. No, it's an active, conscious refusal. More and more women in Japan are looking at the traditional institution of marriage and firmly saying, yeah, no, thank you. For decades, the expected path was super rigid. You grow up, get married in your 20s, become a housewife, and raise children. But today's Japanese women are highly educated, they're financially independent, and they are deeply integrated into the workforce. They have options. They've got their own incomes, their own apartments, and vibrant social lives. So when they examine the traditional expectations of becoming a wife, they're making a highly rational, calculated choice to just opt out. But why exactly? What's driving this definitive, widespread rejection across the country?
Section 1, the marriage boycott, a growing movement.
Section 2, costs outweigh the benefits, the burden. For a lot of Japanese women, marriage doesn't exactly look like a fairy tale partnership. It feels way more like a really harsh cost-benefit analysis, and in this societal equation, they are the ones paying the heaviest price. When a modern Japanese woman contemplates marriage, she is staring down three major life-altering sacrifices. Number 1, giving up her career. Even with recent progress, Japan's corporate culture often demands grueling, inflexible hours. Get married, or especially get pregnant, and a woman frequently faces intense pressure to step down. It's actually a phenomenon so common it has its own term, matahara, or maternity harassment. Number 2, doing all the housework. Because husbands are usually locked into those same brutal corporate hours, they just aren't home to help out. The data consistently shows that Japanese women perform roughly 4 to 5 times as much unpaid domestic labor as men. The wife is expected to manage the home, the finances, and the caregiving almost entirely solo. And number 3, facing intense pressure to have kids. Child-rearing in Japan is heavily scrutinized, with immense expectations placed on the mother to guarantee her child's success in a hyper-competitive educational system. So, when you add it all up, a woman isn't just saying I do to a partner, she's agreeing to abandon her professional ambitions, take on virtually all the domestic labor, and carry the heavy expectation of flawless child-rearing. It's an overwhelming stock of traditional expectations placed squarely on the shoulders of modern, independent women.
Too much work with no benefit. Honestly, that quote hits the nail on the head. It perfectly encapsulates the stark imbalance between societal expectations and the everyday reality for an individual Japanese woman. Just imagine a 30-year-old woman living in Tokyo today. She has a career she worked really hard for, she earns her own salary, she enjoys traveling, and she loves her weekends. The societal proposition of marriage basically asks her to trade all of that hard-earned autonomy to become an unpaid domestic manager. Why take on a mountain of uncompensated labor and sacrifice your own independence if the return on investment, the supposed benefit of marriage, just isn't there? For a growing number of women, the math simply doesn't add up. They aren't rejecting love or companionship. They're rejecting a very specific, deeply unequal institutional arrangement that demands they give up their entire identity.
Section 3, a national demographic crisis. The fallout.
When millions of individuals make this deeply personal choice based on that harsh cost-benefit analysis, it scales up dramatically. We're talking severe, macro-level national consequences. The immediate fallout? Marriage rates are dropping fast. And when we say fast, we mean at a historically unprecedented pace. To put that into perspective, back in the early 1970s, Japan recorded over 1 million marriages a year. Fast forward to recent data, and that number has plummeted below 500,000 for the first time in 90 years. That is a staggering, vertical drop. We aren't just talking about a slow generational shift that society can easily adapt to. The very foundation of traditional family formation in Japan is eroding in real time, because half of the necessary participants are looking at the terms and conditions of marriage and simply refusing to sign the contract.
Which triggers a massive compounding consequence, an all-time low birth rate. Now, you might be wondering, why does a drop in marriage so drastically impact the birth rate in Japan? Well, you have to understand a crucial cultural nuance here. In many Western countries, birth rates have remained somewhat stable because out-of-wedlock births are super common, often accounting for 40 to 50% of all children born. In Japan,
That number is roughly 2%. The cultural stigma against having a child outside of marriage is ironclad. In Japanese society, marriage and childbirth are intrinsically linked. So, a marriage boycott is, by default, a birth boycott. Because women are opting out of marriage, Japan's birth rate has hit an all-time low, plunging well below the replacement level needed to sustain the population. This isn't just a statistical anomaly. It is a severe, existential threat to the country's future. An aging population combined with a shrinking workforce means massive labor shortages, a strained pension system, and economic stagnation. What started as a perfectly rational individual choice to avoid the unfair burdens of marriage has basically compounded into a full-blown national emergency.
So what does this all mean? We are left with this final, pivotal question straight from the core of this issue. Will this ever change? Unless the fundamental equation alters, unless the immense burdens of lost careers, vastly unequal housework, and intense social pressure are finally lifted from the shoulders of Japanese women, will they ever return to the altar? It's a profound question about the very survival of Japan's economic and cultural future, and it forces us to ask what it will actually take to turn this massive societal tide.